I'm joined now by Travis County GOP Chairman Matt Mackowiak and Mayor Steve Adler. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Mayor Adler, you and city council members are pushing for more housing for homeless people. How do you expect to get people in this housing?
Well, I think if we had the housing, people that are experiencing homelessness in their community would overwhelmingly welcome that opportunity. It's like a 3-year wait right now if someone's homeless on our streets before they can get into housing. And if we wait that long to get someone into housing, it's just that much harder to get them back stabilized in life. You know, we're in a city right now where no one wants anyone camping in our city, anywhere in our city. And the task is what is the best path to actually getting to the place where we don't have people camping, sitting, or lying anywhere? And the answer to that is really only one. We have to find places for people to be. And that needs to be our focus as a community now.
Matt, is this the solution?
Well, I think we all agree that the absolute ideal situation would be to have our steady homeless population in housing. You know, from my standpoint, I know the city does some of this already. We need to take people who have mental health problems, identify them, get them diagnosed, get them treatment, get them off the streets. For people who have drug and alcohol abuse problems, they need to be getting the treatment that they need. They need to be off the streets. I think if you took those two populations off the streets, a lot of the problems that people are feeling would go away. A lot of the worst case scenarios of homeless people attacking non-homeless and vice versa would go away. But in terms of the next step, I just think this current homeless camping ordinance is so badly affecting downtown, affecting public health, public safety, our economy, our tourism, the image of Austin, whether someone wants to come here and visit, wants to stay in a hotel downtown, wants to buy a condo in one of the expensive new condo buildings. All these things are coming together. And so my hope, and the hope of the 27,000 people who've signed our petition at saveaustonnowpetition.com, is that they do rescind this homeless camping ordinance and that they identify 5 or 6 or 10 specific locations in the city where homeless people can camp.
Mayor Adler, there were a lot of concerns today about people with mental health issues or who do not want to seek shelter. What will happen to those homeless people?
Well, you know, most of the people that are homeless on our streets are not people dealing with mental health issues, but a significant number of them are. And this is not an Austin issue, or it's much broader than that. It's cities all over Texas and all over the country. I wish we were getting more support from our state. The governor in California just gave $145 million to Los Angeles to deal with this, $650 million across the state for cities. We're not getting that kind of support, and I wish that we did. But we have to do as best we can, and we're focused on mental health issues, and we're doing special programs here. But ultimately, we have to find places for people to be. We know what works. We've reached effective zero with veteran populations in our city. We've taken half of the homeless children off our streets last year. We know what works. We have to scale it. What we know is that it does not work just to move people experiencing homelessness around the city in a big shell game from one place to another place when they're not supposed to be in any of those places. If we're serious about it, we actually have to get them off the streets.
And Mayor, what about the people who do not want to seek shelter?
Well, you know, there is a very small number of people that indicate that they won't take shelter. The vast, overwhelming majority of folks will. But even among that group of people that won't, usually it's because the housing that we provide has roadblocks or barriers that really are just not something that those folks will accept. What we know in other cities, if you set some housing with very low barriers, a housing first strategy, you can get people off the streets that are the most frequent people in your emergency room and in your jails. We have to lower barriers, but it's a really small number of people that won't take a home if a good option is provided.
Matt, what would a Republican propose on doing?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily see this through a partisan lens. I mean, the 27,000 people who signed our petition are not all Republicans. Honestly, I've lived in Austin since 1984, and I've never seen an issue where there's been broader and more intense opposition than this. And so, look, I do want to see more housing. I think taxpayers are willing to see that if there's a long-term plan that makes sense. I would look at 2 examples that do concern me. Look, the Arch is getting worse every single day. There's a stabbing or a murder or something very violent happening almost every weekend. And the Arch is much worse now than it was 5 or 10 years ago. That facility needs to be relocated, and it needs to change. Drug deals, trafficking, you name it, is happening in that 1-block area of downtown, which has effectively become a no man's land. If you look at the new shelter that's been proposed in South Austin, which again, I think we all want more shelters, the community was not a part of that before that building was bought. It was bought for $8 million. I think it was valued at $2 million. It's within a half mile of 3 separate schools, all of which are Hispanic majority areas. So I know the problem is nobody wants to shelter in their neighborhood, so we have to identify the right locations. I hope the city works on that, but in the short term, we've got to overturn this homeless camping ordinance, which is tearing up downtown and affecting our neighborhoods.
And Matt, we've talked about this. You've presented a petition to reverse the June ordinance change that restricts police from ticketing people sitting in line or camping. What's next for you?
Well, we focused on the homeless camping piece, not necessarily sit-lie and what police can do, although those are important issues as well. I think the people who signed our petition don't believe that you should be able to camp in public, and we're seeing that most visibly downtown, but it is happening throughout the city. What our intention is, if we don't see very quick action, and I've said September 1, it's possible we'll wait till September 19th at the council meeting, we're going to propose putting this on the ballot in May and collect 20,000 physical signatures to try to overturn this in the May ballot. I don't want to be needlessly combative, but if we're not seeing quick enough action, I think there was an expectation in August the council and the mayor would work to revisit this. It hasn't been on the agenda in one council meeting. And so if September is going to be a month of action, and I hope it is, then I think the people who signed our petition are going to be willing to accept that. But this going on in perpetuity, allowing camping in public, allowing it to affect the image of Austin and tourism and our economy and public safety and public health, that can't continue.
Mayor, a lot of business owners, neighbors, and the police union are frustrated with the lack of ability to ticket people sitting in line or camping on the street. Simple yes or no. Will you consider reversing that decision that you made back in June?
In June, we said that we would start identifying places that were not the safest or best place for people to be. We're going to do exactly what we said in June, which will have those kind of restrictions. But remember, we wrote 18,000 tickets to people between 2014 and 2016. Didn't work. Between 2016 and today, we just threaten people with a ticket or arrest and they move. That doesn't work. You know, the camping is not new in our city. The people sleeping under the highways, not new in our city. Everything we've been doing up to this point has not been effective. In this city, I am tired of spending millions of taxpayer dollars just moving people around the city. I cannot do that anymore. We actually have to solve this. And the way that you solve this is you put people in homes. We can't satisfy ourselves with a policy that just has us threatening people with arrest and tickets and moving them. We have to put people in homes. We know from watching Los Angeles and Seattle that if we keep these old policies, which is what they did, in place, all we're going to do is have a challenge that grows and grows and grows. It's absolutely true we need to do something about the arch downtown. We shouldn't have camping sitting or lying on the outside of any shelters, and we've proposed that now. In the last several days, we've had almost half the council come forward and say, let's start identifying places that are not the safest place for people to be. But ultimately, the answer has to be to find a place for them to go. When someone says to us, okay, you don't want me here, I'm ready to move somewhere, where should I go? As a community, we have to have an answer for that question. And that's because if we're trying to take several hundred people that are camping and say we don't want you camping anymore, we can either threaten them with arrest and tickets, which we know doesn't work, and just move them somewhere else to camp and rest instead, or we could actually take them off the street. Austin is a city that can understand what it needs to do, and we need to do it.
All right, well, we are out of time. Mayor Adler, Matt Mackowiak, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks.
Thank you.